a major legal development in the MAGA riot investigation. Today, the first guilty plea from a member of the far-right Oath Keepers. Graydon Young, seen here leaving a D.C. court today, pleading guilty on 2 of 6 charges against him for conspiracy and obstruction of an official proceeding. Conspiracy as in the pre-planning of the insurrection. Young agreeing to cooperate as part of his plea deal. Now, this is huge. There are reportedly 15 other members involved, and Young still faces years in prison. How much he cooperates could be the key. Also today, the first January 6th rioter was sentenced. The 49-year-old Indiana woman entered the Capitol and was given 3 years probation, 40 hours of community service, and a $500 fine. The judge rebuked GOP lawmakers downplaying the insurrection, accusing them of, quote, rewriting history and comparing insurrectionists to tourists, adding, quote, I don't know what planet they were on. Comes as the DOJ is releasing new videos, one showing a group with someone saying, let's take the effing Capitol. Another showing a defendant carrying a stolen riot shield. And another showing them storming past police officers on a stairwell into the Capitol. I want to note, any editing on this video was not done by NBC. Joining me now is Neil Katyal, former acting U.S. Solicitor General. Neil, it is great to talk to you. I'm going to start with this. I cannot contain my disgust and annoyance that the first person who was sentenced from this insurrection basically got community service. I have seen people, this is a fine akin to somebody who got caught like burning park benches after their team won a championship. And this woman was actually involved in an attempted coup. Can you explain to us why this woman in Indiana got such a light sentence compared to some of the other people we're going to talk about?
Well, Jason, I generally agree with you about this particular sentence, but the sentencing hearing itself is quite interesting. So I'll talk about the sentence in a second. But with the hearing, we're only one sentencing hearing in. The defendant here didn't even participate in the violence, and yet we've already seen a federal judge castigate congressional Republicans for their rhetoric about January 6th. It's going to be a long summer, long hot summer for the Capitol riot truthers, and Republicans are about to be debunked by the very rioters that they've been lying about in their defense. So with respect to this, look, I do think the sentence is too lenient. It's true, she only entered the building. She didn't actually kill anyone inside it, unlike others. But if someone breaks into my home or office, I kind of think jail time's appropriate for that person, let alone the people's office. The law calls for up to a 6-month sentence for what she did, so I was a little surprised to see it being just basically community service. It's true, it's her first offense. She doesn't have known ties to extremists, but I don't think it's the right call. What the judge said to explain himself was, it's an easier case because she accepted her responsibility. But she only accepted her responsibility after she got busted. This defendant went to the sheriff's office to get a gun permit, and an employee recognized her from Facebook as the woman who was posting things about going to the Capitol. At least she has some contrition, some acceptance of responsibility. Are we ever going to have any acceptance of responsibility from the Stop the Steal caucus in Congress? I mean, who would have guessed that 6 months later, the perpetrators of the riot would be who are most vocal about its violence are the perpetrators and not the people in Congress? I mean, it's just really unfortunate.
It's ridiculous. And every time I hear, and I'm going to always apply what I call the Crystal Mason standard. If a black woman can be sentenced to 5 years in jail for voting in Texas, that is the minimum that I'm going to look at every single one of these insurrectionists. So I want to move also to now the Oath Keepers. So you've got several members of the Oath Keepers, which is a far-right organization, a paramilitary organization like a lot of these groups are, like the Proud Boys. You now have members of their leadership basically saying, all right, look, I'll flip, I'll give information. Neil, what I'm curious about is how reliable can that be? Because what always strikes me is, look, okay, if your leadership, maybe you've got the entire mailing list, you can tell us what everybody told you and what they planned on doing. But how much can one leader of an organization ratting out everybody else can really do if everyone else says, hey, look, I was operating independently, or it was really this guy's idea, it wasn't this person's idea? How strong is that kind of delivering of information from leadership?
It's huge. And I think that's what's going on with this plea that you're talking about, the Great and Young plea, where he pleads to 5 to 6 years, approximately, of a sentence in exchange for his cooperation. And he said he felt duped by the group today in court. But I have a feeling Young isn't the only one who felt duped on the 6th. And I think There'll be a theme across these sentencings, but the others will be talking about Donald Trump. And Jason, here's where the conspiracy doctrine, which is an old doctrine, goes back hundreds of years, is really important. And in a past life, I wrote a Yale Law Journal article all about it. It's all about flipping. It's all about extracting information and using it by linking together one defendant to another. And I think what's going on here, if you read these indictments, is that's what the Justice Department's trying to do. They're trying to use this expansive conspiracy doctrine to get information, because after all, some of the leaders of these groups were using encrypted communications and the like. And it'd be really fitting if a movement born of conspiracy theories ends in conspiracy charges.
It is interesting also, the number of these leaders who are doing it. Enrique Tarrio is doing the same thing. You have a lot of leaders of these organizations that the moment that it got hot, suddenly they're flipping evidence on everybody. I want to also find out about this. So as you're getting this kind of information from Oath Keepers, from Proud Boys, from other organizations, is there going to be a moment, or do you expect us to finally hear that smoking gun moment where somebody in one of these organizations admits to or provided evidence that says, somebody in Congress helped me? Because that has been what a lot of people have been curious about all along. The level of sophistication for the attack. It is hard to envision that this was just done with a couple of tours and checking Schoolhouse Rock about how the Capitol looks. There are real concerns that either staffers or members of Congress help. Do you think we're going to hear that soon from the leaders of these organizations who clearly were part of the planning process?
Well, I would say two things about that. One is I think we will hear something like that, because even if you don't have a smoking gun or anything, it's very clear that members of Congress and indeed the president himself gave aid and comfort to these people. So at least indirect support, that's already in the record. Now there's a known unknown. What's beyond that? Is there actually the kind of direct material support that you're talking about? It wouldn't shock me, given all the lengths to which the Republicans are going to try and block a January 6th commission. I mean, they must have something to hide. When the people's house has been attacked, people have died, blood has been spilled in the Capitol, and yet they're afraid to have an investigation. They must be hiding something. I don't know what that is, and that's why I think this Justice Department investigation is being done in such a meticulous, careful way. If that evidence exists, the American people should have it. If the evidence doesn't exist, the American people should have the absolute confidence no stone was left unturned. They looked at everything and decided there wasn't that piece of evidence that you're referring to, Jason.
And one last thing on this, because as you said, you have Republicans in the House and the Senate. Obviously, some in the House actually voted for the January 6th commission. All the Republicans in the Senate pretty much didn't vote for it, and then Kristen Sinema skipped out on it. Now that we've heard that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is like, look, we're going to do a commission anyway. We're going to investigate this. Do you think that investigation that they're going to have on the House side, does that help or harm these individual prosecutions happening around the country with the people involved in the insurrection?
Well, they sometimes have the possibility of harming, because sometimes you give immunity or something like that in Congress and it can mess up the criminal prosecution. That's what happened, for example, with Oliver North. But I think at this point in time, these rules and laws are pretty well baked into things. And so House investigators are going to be really careful not to step on the toes of the criminal prosecutions that are ongoing. So I have absolute confidence it can be done. It's a shame that the Republicans were afraid to do this in a bipartisan way. But let's not let the truth, go undiscovered. We need to find it out.
Neal Katyal with the good legal news today. Thank you so very much.